Hey everyone, it's Sam with the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Bilal. Thank you so much for joining us from 812 Mortgages.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming. And today we have a very special topic to talk about. It's not going to be mortgages, but something more interesting. We're going to talk about the co-equity program.
Yep.
Well, before we get into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and the history behind 812 Mortgages, Bilal?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sam, for having me here. My name is Bilal. I'm from 812 Mortgage, and we're a Canadian brokerage. We operate nationally across Canada. We're licensed in pretty much every single province in Canada. And we pretty much offer end-to-end solutions for our clients. We work with a large array of referral partners, real estate teams, financial advisors, we sort of brought something different to the table, which is that mortgage companies in Canada have generally been very sort of, backwards. They've still been using the same systems that they were using 20, 30 years ago. And we sort of were the new kids in the block. We started the company about 4 years ago. And it's very tech-focused, tech-heavy, and we're doing a lot of cool stuff, and not just in that space, but also what we're offering to clients and real estate partners in terms of different types of mortgage solutions, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about into a little bit later. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that.
No
Yeah,
problem.
and our clients have been super happy with you guys with the
Appreciate that.
mortgages and our agents too. The way you guys have everything streamlined, it's amazing. And we'll definitely talk more about that.
Absolutely appreciate
But
it.
today we're here to talk about an amazing program you guys introduced to our team and our clients, and we wanted to share this on a more mass scale level. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the co-equity program?
Absolutely. So the co-equity program, it's designed to help home buyers, get into the market. The number one piece when we look at the market right now, if you ask any home buyer, we all, if you're living here in the GTA, for example, I'm going to use Toronto as an example. You know, people have decent income. They're working a regular job. They're making good money. The biggest hindrance to them buying a home is down payment.
Right.
So there was a recent stat that for an average Torontonian or average person in the GTA to save 20% for a down payment would take them something like 26 years.
Wow.
Based on the median salary, right? Based on the median home sale price in Toronto
Right.
these days. So that's obviously not possible. And some people have the bank of mom and dad to help them out. Amazing, good for you, right? But a lot of people don't have that. So then, we had to find a solution for this, and very, very happy to announce that we partnered up with this company, and we're the first to bring them to market, and providing folks help with down payments. So as long as you have the first 5% from your own sources, we can get you a contribution up to 15% to make your total down payment 20%.
Nice.
So then you could really purchase that home and get into home ownership sooner than later, rather than renting. The down payment, of course, the total is 20%. You can come up with 5. They'll give you up to 15, obviously there's no interest on it. There's no payments, but this will really help you get into the market. A couple of things that it does achieve is that, let's say you could buy a particular home with just 5% down. Let's say you have savings for 5%. Remember, if you're buying something for 5% down, you have to pay the CMHC fee,
Correct.
right? Or Sagan, or whoever the insurer is, and that's a hefty amount.
Right.
So right away, there's quite a few benefits. When you get up to that 20%, you don't have to pay those fees. You can get a longer amortization on your mortgage. So generally, if you're doing 5% down, or 10% down, or 15% down, you're doing a 25-year amortization.
Right.
Now, with the 20% down, you can go up to 30, right?
Nice.
So your monthly cash flow is now better.
Absolutely,
So it's a
yeah.
great, great program.
Yeah, that's amazing. So generally who would be the people that you attract for this program mainly?
I would say first-time home buyers is a big one,
Okay.
because they're the ones that we really feel that need help with this, with the
Right.
down payment piece. So I think first-time home buyers big. I'll also talk about self-employed, right? So if we're in a gig economy these days,
Right.
Right? Everyone has some sort of gig, right? They're doing something on the side, whether it's an FBA business, whatever the case may be. It's driving Uber on the side.
Right.
So what happens is that now that is non-traditional income. And if you go to the bank and say, hey, I started doing Uber 6 months ago, can I use that income to go along with my regular job? The bank's going to say no, right?
Exactly.
They want to see 2 years of history. They want to see your T1s, your tax returns, the whole shebang, right? And then if they go to an alternative lender, if they go to an alternative lender with that sort of income, they're going to be like, okay, you need 20% down. So again, this is a good program for those guys as well, those folks as well, those families that are looking to buy, whether maybe they're contractors, Uber drivers, whatever the case may be, they need 20% down. So again, great for them. That's your number two. Number three is people that have had, let's say, some challenges in the past with their credit, right? Because in order to fit the criteria for a bank, you have to be pretty much, AAA credit, AAA income. You cannot have any blemishes on your credit. But you know what? We're all human, right? I'm sure. I don't know about yourself, but there's a lot of people out there that have, when they were young, 18, 19 years old,
including myself,
including yourself, including myself. Like we all made mistakes in the past. And if your credit is not perfect, a bank is not going to give you a mortgage, right?
Especially today.
Especially these days when lending is so tight already. So when you go to a B lender, the first thing they're going to be like, okay, amazing. Do you have a 20% down payment?
Right.
Again, that's where this program can help you out. So I'd say those are the top three people that this can help out
So can we break this down? Like, how would it work? Let's just say I came to you today and I had like 5% down. Like I had, let's say 40,000, 30,000. Like, can you kind of break it down? Like, how would that look like for a buyer?
Absolutely. So let's do this. So let's look at a property, for example. Let's say if you want to purchase a property for $1 million.
Okay.
You have 5% down available. And you know what? Actually, if you don't mind, let me just to keep the math simple, let's do 10%.
Okay, I have 10%.
Just to keep the math simple. Because the same idea is going to apply to 5% as well. So let's say you have 10% available. Okay. You have saved up 100,000. Amazing. You bring your 100,000. We bring in the co-equity partner who's going to put in the other 100,000, right? So now your down payment is 20%, right? We would give you a pre-approval letter. We would give the client a pre-approval letter, and once they have their pre-qualification or pre-approval letter, they come to you and they say, "Hey Sam, I spoke to Bilal at 812. Here's my pre-approval letter. I can buy for $1 million. Take me shopping." Right. And then you take them to see some properties. When they find a property they like, you make an offer on it. And once you have an accepted offer, we take your accepted offer and along with the rest of the documentation and send it to the co-equity partner for their agreement on that on the deal.
Right.
Once they've completed their side of the agreement, we then send everything over to the bank for approval and pretty much get the approval done. And from there on in, it's pretty much just like any other mortgage. So, and then what would happen is that you just like any other mortgage, you would have your monthly mortgage payment, you would have your property tax, the usual upkeep of the home, and that would all be there. However, one thing I do want to add here is the length of that contract with the co-equity company is the same as the length of your mortgage.
Right.
So if you're taking a 30-year mortgage, your contract or your agreement is also going to be 30 years.
So right? Just so everyone understands, so meaning for 30 years, you have a contract with that co-equity partner. That's amazing.
Yeah, and they will not force you to sell or do anything or buy them out or anything like that within that 30 years if you choose not to do anything.
So you can stay partners with them for 30 years or you can buy them out earlier. That was one of my questions. So you can buy them out earlier if you wanted to.
Absolutely. And you know what? Let me do this. Let me give you a scenario where you sell the property and then I'll talk to you about the buying out as well.
Okay.
So let's use the same example. You put in 10% of the down payment, they put in the other 10%, and you bought this $1 million home in Toronto. And now let's say 5 years down the road, your family situation has changed. Maybe you need a bigger space, maybe a bigger backyard, you have kids now, whatever the case may be. And you want to buy something bigger. So, your client calls you, "Hey Sam, I want to sell my house." Okay. You sell the property for, let's say, $1.5 million. Okay. So now you took out a mortgage. Remember, you bought the property for $1 million.
Right.
You took out a mortgage of $800,000. Right. Because you put 20% down total. And now this property is worth $1.5 million. Right. Now, what's going to happen is that the first thing that they do is they calculate how much you've paid down on the mortgage.
Right.
So let's say in that total time you've paid down in 5 years. Let's just say assume $100,000.
Okay.
You paid down $100,000. Right. So of the net profit. So let's say the mortgage balance that you took out was $800,000.
Right.
5 years later, you owe the bank $700,000.
Correct.
Right. And you sold the property for $1.5 million. Now you have $800,000 in gross profit.
Right.
The first thing that's going to happen is that the $100,000 you've paid down to the mortgage comes back to you. right? Then what's left is a total net profit of 700,000.
So they give you back what you paid them in that 5 years. Every single penny that you paid, you get that first.
Whatever you paid to the principal.
Principal.
Not interest,
Okay.
of course,
Right,
because
right.
the bank keeps the interest, right?
Yeah.
But whatever you've paid into the principal, you definitely get that back.
That's
right?
amazing. Yeah.
So you get the 100,000 back, and then let's say the net profit is 700,000 because you did half the down payment and they did half the down payment. Then that profit gets split in half.
Correct.
So you walk away with 350,000. They walk away with 350,000. Plus, you also obviously get to keep your 100,000 that you paid down on the
Right.
mortgage. So you walk away with $450,000.
That's
right?
amazing. Yeah.
Now, so that's exactly how they do that calculation. High level, of course. Now put that up against, and this is where this really hits home. If you're renting today in this market, and you're obviously a very successful realtor, you know how the market is. What is an average rent here in Toronto these days? Would you throw out a number?
3,000, 3,500.
Right. So you take that.
That's for condos.
That's for condos. That's for exactly right. So let's say you take 3,000 times 12 months. That's $36,000. That is going down the drain. You add that over 5 years. What does that number work out to? And then you start doing the math. You're like, yeah, you know what? This is what I need to do.
Yeah, it's a big swing if you depending on what direction you go, right? A lot of people think waiting and some magical thing is going to happen and we're going to go back to 1990 prices, but unfortunately, real estate is always going up and down in an upwards way. So the sooner you get in, if you're playing the long game, the better it is, right? And right now we have a very special opportunity for a lot of first-time home buyers, self-employed individuals who are having a harder time to getting a mortgage to actually have a co-equity partner jump on a deal with them and make it 20% so they can definitely qualify at a much better option.
Because what happens is that and one of the other benefits, actually two other key benefits I'll bring up, is number one being, for those of you, you may not know, but when you buy your first home, or any home by the way, you have to pay something called a land transfer tax, otherwise known as LTT, right? And Sam, give us an idea, if you're buying a $1.5 million home in Toronto, or let's say $1 million property in Toronto, what's the land transfer tax?
$1 million house in Toronto, you're looking around $20,000.
Double, and remember it's in Toronto, so double.
Yeah,
right?
so
you get paid twice.
Oh yeah.
So you're probably looking between $30,000 and $40,000 just for the land transfer tax.
Right.
When you're closing your deal. Now, if you're doing this program, and however you did that co-equity split in the beginning, so let's say if you put 10% down, they put in 10%, or let's say you put 5% and they put 15%, then they will cover that land transfer tax according to that percentage.
According to that percentage.
Right? That's the beauty of it.
So they're on the cost and expenses with you all the way to the end.
On some things, not all. Yeah. So, for example, the land transfer tax, the reason why I talk about it, because it's a big one,
It's
right?
a big one,
It's a huge amount. So, imagine someone pays half your land transfer tax. Because they should, right? Because they're also taking part in the profit of the home, right? So they should pay the land transfer tax. So it's a very, very fair sort of system. I always say, I make a joke of this, that it's similar to buying a house or buying a property with your brother.
Yeah.
It's the same, literally.
With your brother with a big bank account.
Exactly. That's right.
Right. That's amazing. So, Bilal, since we do a lot of pre-construction and a lot of our clients and viewers may be also pre-construction investors, purchasers, how does this apply to pre-construction?
So how it works for pre-construction is that when they are coming up for closing, yes, at that time we can bring in co-equity, and we can bring our co-equity partners in and have a discussion there, but not necessarily to buy a pre-construction unit that's going to be built in 3, 4, 5 years. They don't do that.
No, the reason I'm asking, and we're recording this in February 2023. Right now we're at a time where a lot of purchasers are getting to the time where they got to be closing on their pre-construction, and some of them can't close.
Yeah.
So they need to put more down payment, or for other reasons that they don't qualify. So this is somewhere where the co-equity program can benefit those individuals as well.
Yeah. So if they have a closing that's coming up now, let's say their closing is coming up next month. And again, we're not talking about occupancy, we're talking about closing. So if their closing is coming up, then definitely is something that we can look into, 1,000%.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So basically, they can partner with the co-equity. They can put 5%, 10%, 15%, 5 to 15%, and the co-equity partners will cover the rest, ultimately, right?
Correct. Yeah. Their minimum purchase price is 550,000, and maximum is 2.5 million.
So minimum 500, up
550.
to 550,
Yeah, and max is 2.5 million.
and 2.5.
Yeah, so it covers pretty much like your broad array of properties.
Yeah, that's a large range.
So that's one program that we have, and then I'm going to leave you with a little teaser. So we do have actually a couple of new companies that we're also going to be bringing to market for the same co-equity program. Obviously, it's I'm a firm believer in competition. Fair competition is always, the consumer always wins.
Right.
And that's the goal here is to help folks get into properties, and because and you're in this business, so that real estate is the most, hands down, the most valuable asset that money can buy.
Absolutely.
Right. So the goal is to help families, and so we're going to be bringing some more competition in this space as well.
Okay, so hopefully we'll have another podcast on that one.
Of course, it.
For sure. So how does what are the qualification requirements? How does one person qualify for this program?
Yeah. So again, like I mentioned, as long as they have their own 5% down payment. Now, it doesn't have to, they could be getting that 5% from, family, friends, gifted, works as well. But as long as they have access to that 5% available, and they have, reasonable income. Credit, I'm not really going to talk about, because we can work with pretty much every single type of credit, profile. Right. So, if your credit score is amazing, 850, perfect, great, we can help you with that. If your credit score is 594, we can still help you with that. So as long as you have reasonable income, that is enough to service that mortgage. And, one thing I want to add here is, rather than just servicing, something they feel comfortable with.
Right.
Because if you're buying your first home, you never want it to be a negative experience or be stressed about mortgage payments.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And that's where, like what you mentioned, that your clients have been getting great service from us, is because we take the time to go through that with them.
Right.
That, hey, this is your income. This is how much you're going to be putting towards every month towards your mortgage and property tax. Are you comfortable with that? Is that too much? Is that, so we have those conversations with them. 5% down payment, reasonable income, enough to service a mortgage that they're looking to get. And I would say those are the key ones. They have to be a Canadian citizen or PR.
Okay.
Okay, that's very important. I would also add that this program is it's designed for couples, for families. So they prefer it's husband and wife, or common law, boyfriend, girlfriend, that sort of thing.
Like two people on file?
Two partners.
Two partners.
Right. It's, like we've had certain sort of files where they haven't approved it, where it was, two brothers buying together.
Right.
Because, the story just didn't fit. Because they don't want, the investors, they don't want people to take advantage of this program. It's not designed for, it's not designed for that. It's designed to help, families get into homes, right? So that's very important. You can have you and your wife could be buying a property, but your brother could be a guarantor on the mortgage. Absolutely, no problem. But on the title, they want.
It's really to help families. Like they're trying to solve a problem, not create another one.
Exactly, because what we don't want is, we don't want people taking advantage of this program, and we all know what happens then. One other thing that maybe when we were talking about the type of clients that this program is for, I'll give you another one. So, let's say I've done well for myself. I actually have 20% available, right? But there's a age-old saying that never put all your eggs into one basket.
Right.
Right. So maybe what you can do is, let's say if you have 20% down payment, you have your $200,000 saved up. Amazing, good for you. But rather than putting your entire 20%, $200,000 into the property, let's put 15%. Okay. And let's leave that 5% out and put it into a nice investment fund. or an
Right.
S&P 500 matched fund. Let that grow. So that way you're diversifying your
Or
investments.
pre-construction.
Or pre-construction. There you go. That's what I was thinking. So there's so many
Yeah,
different
for
ways you
sure,
can get
for sure.
creative with your money, right? So rather than tying it all up into one
Would
house,
they come on to two, like if let's just say you have 200,000, right? And I say, okay, like let's buy one house for 1 million, and then let's buy another one for 1 million as an investment. Do they get into investment properties too, or just primary residences?
they don't.
They don't like the
They
investments.
they don't.
They
They
want to
don't.
help families.
Yes, and it's primary residences only. You can definitely rent out a portion of the house. So let's say if I buy a house and I want to rent out the basement to help me offset my costs, that's
They
fine.
allow that, but
They do allow that. Yeah, so but not for investment properties. However, we have had instances where a client had a property, but their property was really big, and there were some changes in their life, and they're like, hey, we can't keep this property anymore. I can't maintain this anymore. I need to downsize. So they rented out. They didn't want to sell. The market was down, so they rented out their place, and with the co-equity company, they bought a condo because they wanted to downsize. So those kinds of options are there.
so what else can you tell us about this program that maybe I didn't ask you? Some interesting things that's
Actually, yeah.
I have some more questions here. Let me pull up my questions. But go ahead.
Absolutely. While you do that, I'll tell everyone one more interesting thing about this program, is that you can, let's say you purchase this home with the program. Let's say we do the 10 and 10 split.
Right.
Right. You put 10%, they put 10%. And let's say 2 years into the home ownership, you're like, hey, I want to do $20,000 worth of renovations to the house.
Right.
I want to add. Whatever, like you want to build a deck or not sure, whatever. You want to do a $20,000 worth of improvement.
Right.
As long as you speak to the co-equity company before you do those renovations, what they can do is, they're not going to give you 20,000 or 10,000 to help with the renovations. However, when you sell the property, they will deduct their portion of that cost
Right.
from their side of the portion.
So if they approve it, then they allow you to take it off, just like how you took off the principal.
Exactly. You got
You
it.
can take off the minor upgrades that you do.
Yeah.
But it's got to be approved by them. You can't just go do stuff and
Yeah,
then
you can't
later
just do
say,
it.
here's a receipt for.
Exactly. So you just got to give them a quick call, and they have an amazing team. I work with them pretty much every day. They're fantastic people, and whenever I talk about this program, I really wanted to say this. So every time I talk about this program, a lot of people go like, they're like, what's the catch?
Right.
What's the catch? These are not loan sharks. When you meet the team at this co-equity company, their name is Arboro, by the way, for folks at home that want to look it up. Ourboro. So when you look them up, they're really, they're a great team. They really work with home buyers to get them into home ownership. And it's not any sort of there's no catch to it.
Right.
Like that's essential. They don't even put their name on the title of the property.
Wow.
So that way you don't have any sort of concerns of that nature. What they do is they put a restriction on the title, so you can't sell the house or refinance without them agreeing to it. But yeah, there's no catch to it. There's no interest payments on the down payment contribution, nothing like that. It's pretty much when you sell the home, or if you want to buy them out, they do a fair market appraisal from a third-party company. It's not their appraiser, it's a third-party appraiser.
Right.
That goes in, values a property based on today's market, puts a number on and then they do the same calculation and calculate the split, and you pay them out, whether through a refinance or maybe you've saved up enough money, whatever the case may be, you pay them out.
That's if you want to buy them out without selling them. Like if at some
Exactly.
point you decide you want to buy them out, you don't have to sell it to buy them out.
No.
You can refinance it, or you could just use your savings or gift or inheritance or whatever you can come up with, and you can just buy them out based on the appraisal done by a third party company.
That's absolutely correct.
And you can do that anytime. There's no it's an open type of contract.
Yeah. So generally speaking, they're looking for a 6% return
6% return.
on their investment. That's what they're generally looking for. But again, it's all done case by case basis. If the 6% is not there, let's say it's a down market scenario. Actually, talking about a down market scenario, maybe now's a good time for me to bring that up too. So they're partners with you in the profit, but they're also partners with you in a loss situation as well.
Wow.
So let's say, knock on wood, you buy a property and you have to sell, and because we had this actually happen to a home buyer. So we had a home buyer that, at the peak of the market, we all know what happened last year,
Right.
right? So we had a home buyer that, was purchased a property at the peak of the market and rushed into it, and the space is too small for them, for their family, and they call me like all the time. Obviously, they didn't work with a good realtor like yourself, who would have advised them, hey, this house is too small for your family. I speak to them all the time, and they decided to sell their house. This is a couple of months ago. So they were quite a bit down on their investment. Now, the client didn't end up selling the property. However, they were going to, and it was going to be a loss position, and the co-equity company was going to take the loss.
That's really interesting because, like, in most, there's not any program like this, first of all, and anything that I've seen in the past similar to it there was a catch, there was something, and it was more one-sided than.
Yeah.
Well, this is more like it's actually more one-sided for the purchaser, where they get more benefits out of this.
Yep, and their interests, because it's about interest, right? Not like the bank interest, but their interests are aligned with the home buyer.
Right.
Because what does a home buyer want? They want the perfect home, and they want it to get it as good of a price as possible. The co-equity company, their goal is the same. They want to get a beautiful property, and they want to get it as the lowest price possible.
Right.
So their interests are aligned. So I think that's where what you're saying, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, and I think one thing we're talking about before is like since, like if you're a first-time home buyer and you're a little worried, am I getting the right house, right area, right price? Now you have a partner who's backing you, whether it's with 5% they're putting down or 15%, they're putting their money. So when they're putting their money, they're gonna have a team of like experts who are gonna go through this property and this deal to make sure that it's a good deal for them first and foremost because it's their business.
Mm-hmm.
But then that can also mean a good deal for you. So ultimately, it's like having an expert partner who's been doing this a long time and has a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you if you should buy this house or don't buy this house. That's really important too, because not all the time your realtor is going to be the expert, so-called expert you should be getting the advice from. Unfortunately and sadly, that's how it is, right?
Exactly. And, they have a full investment team. They really review everything. And, I've always had an ethos that you always follow the smart money.
Yeah.
Right? And they have a big fund. They have the right tools. They have the right investment team. So when they tell you, "Hey, this is a good deal," trust me, it's a good deal.
Yeah.
And if they tell you it's not a good deal, it's not a good
Not a
deal.
good deal.
Yeah.
So Bilal, what about location, like geographic location? What's the boundaries?
So they pretty much do all of GTA. So
Okay.
think from, I would say, Durham region all the way to, they're up to Halton now as well, right? Yeah, Halton as well.
Nice.
They go into Barrie as well. And recently, pleased to let the viewers know that I don't think this is, the press release has come out on this yet. But I will let everyone know that KW, like Kitchener-Waterloo,
Nice.
Guelph, London, those are all of their areas now too. So
going out
they're
west,
open to investing in those areas as well. So
And it looks like they're
great
going to be
areas.
expanding more and more from the way it looks like it. Because the last time we met, the KW area wasn't included yet. It was in the talks, but I guess they're having success with this. And honestly, I think this is a great solution to a huge problem because. Like first-time buyers, it's getting worse and worse every year. It's becoming harder and harder with inflation, with the cost to borrow, cost for everything. You know what I mean? It's even harder for them to save, and prices of homes are not coming down that much.
They're not, and obviously you're the expert in this field, but I'm inclined to think that if you delete that 6-7 months of COVID craziness in the real estate market, the market's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If you just delete that time, that 6-7 months in the beginning of the first half of 2022, and look at the stats from pre-COVID to now, we're
And
pretty.
those and that time it wasn't that time people were just scared to go to showings. It was they were scared to let people come into their house. It wasn't like people were selling for cheap. Like no, people were not even allowing people into their house. So it's just like time or nothing. And the only people that were selling stuff were grocery stores and food. Like you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Everybody else was shut down.
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree with you. And even right now, I was looking at some stats. Um, the price of houses have come down, detached mainly, and some of the more expensive homes. But when you look at condos, in some areas, it's actually been up like 0.5%, or down very little. So for the first time buyer, the prices haven't even gone down. So it's better for them to just get in sooner than later.
You know what? I looked at some TREB data. That's Toronto Real Estate Board, and the days on market, which is a very key indicator, is also coming down and it's week over week over week, week on
Coming
week.
down.
It's trending downwards.
Yeah.
The people on the field, people on the streets, not on the streets, I mean like people that are the ground force, that's working with buyers, there I'm hearing from all of them that, it's
It
multiple
is,
offers,
for
multiple
sure, for
offers,
sure.
multiple offers. I need to go firm. A lot of my realtor
Yeah.
partners are calling me, hey, I need to go firm on this property. So
We're
We're-
getting back to that
yeah.
that time again.
we're seeing that. And now here's a very important date that I'm going to tell you and your viewers, okay? So mark this date, folks. March 6th. Okay? That's the next Bank of Canada meeting, okay? Right now the consensus is that there's going to be no rate hike on March 6th, okay? And the market, which is already poised to go crazy on the first sight of positive news, when they see on March 6th and gets confirmed that there's no interest rate hike, I guarantee you right now you're going to see a huge uptick in activity. Whether or not that translates to pricing, I'm inclined to think yes, but I think that date is going to be key for this year, March 6th.
And the thing with like Toronto real estate, based on what I've been seeing since like 2008, when the market crashed, when it goes down like slowly for some time, but when it goes back up, it's crazy. It's like
Comes
a
back with a
storm.
vengeance.
Yeah, and for the first like few months, you can literally be paying 50, 100K more for the same property within a few months, maybe
Yeah.
even a few weeks sometimes. So yeah, I agree with you, and hopefully let's see what happens. We don't want to see another crazy market like before, where like nobody can get into a house. There's 40, 50, 60 offers. But we also don't want to see interest rates going like this either, right?
As much as I agree with you, but I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, well, we can't control it, right? There's just supply and demand.
Supply and demand. I was actually, again, this was another chart that I read this was a few weeks ago, and on our channel, I did a video on this as well. So to keep up with the demand, right, from 2024 onwards, if I'm not wrong, could be 2023, so please don't hold me to this. On average, we need to build 300,000 homes every year to
Yeah.
keep up with that number, to keep up with the
Yeah, I
demand.
saw those numbers. It's crazy, and we
Right?
cleared nothing close to that.
And the highest we've done is like
20, 30K or something.
no, the highest we did was in 2021, which was 73 or 74,000. It was way less than
Yeah,
less than
a lot
100K.
less.
And that was in 2021. So how are we going to build
And the thing is,
300,000
they
homes?
want with the like the city giving permits and zonings, and they're even making more difficult for builders to build, and taxing them more and all that stuff. It's even gonna get more expensive. So
Yeah, and then here's what's going to add fuel to the fire, is immigration, right? So we've committed to 1.5 million immigrants to Canada
Right.
over the next few years, and remember these are folks that are going to be coming into. This is a skilled trade force, right?
Yeah.
So these are not people that are, they're going to come and join the workforce immediately.
Right.
And Canada has a robust system when it comes to paying people, right? So these people are going to have decent jobs. They're qualified. They're in the IT field, engineering, lawyers, nurses, right? So where are they going to live, right? And so if you add all of those things into this equation, it just says one thing, that it's if you're right now sitting at home thinking that prices are going to come down next year and you're going to buy next year for half the price.
you can't time the bottom, right?
You cannot.
You
You
gotta. Like sometimes people get a little too greedy, and they're trying to get the most. Like honestly, like an analogy I like to use is like, Like if you're looking to buy, it's like going to a casino and you already won $200,000, and now you're saying, okay, I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna try to make another 50, you know, and you stay there, and all of a sudden you lose 150,000 down, and now you have only 50K. So if it's way too long, you might not catch the good prices, and when it goes up, it might be too late. Then you're just gonna be like everybody else.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
people always want to like time the bottom, but you can't.
You can't.
Nobody can. I don't think anybody can.
You know, like I can't believe, like, I'm gonna talk. My dad always says one thing. Okay, he says about home ownership: when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
You know, so if you follow that saying, it's essentially is that if you have good income now, and you have a down payment, or you have that first 5%, or maybe you have your own 20%, good for you.
Right.
If you have that, now is a good time.
Yeah.
And am I saying that don't buy a house next year? Absolutely not. If your situation is not good right now and you cannot buy right now, no problem.
Exactly.
Don't force yourself. But next year, when you do have that, then don't be like, oh, prices have gone up now, so I'm not going to buy. If you are in that position to buy next year, then buy next year.
Especially with real estate, right? Like it's a long-term thing. Like
It's a long play.
like if you go look at the market and trends for the last 100 years, it's always going up. Like
Always going up.
so, if you buy a house today or yesterday or tomorrow, it's in 5 years you're still like winning huge on it, right?
Yep.
So, I think a lot of people look at real estate short-term. Whether they're end users or investors, and I think that's where they get kind of confused a little. But real estate long term, you always win, especially in Toronto. We have a huge market. It's a beast. Like even in '08 when there was a recession, honestly, we bounced back a lot quicker than because I in our coaching program we had friends all over the U.S. and they were like their markets were crippled for a long time. It took them a long time to get back, but Toronto, just like New York City, they did a quick bounce back. Like within like less than a year or under a year, we were like already going back up slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So even right now, like if you think about it, with all these interest rate hikes, like we should be like prices should have dropped 50%, but it hasn't.
I mean, eight interest rate hikes.
Yeah, like that's psychologically that should like nobody should be buying anything, right?
I know. Like
And now there's multiple offers every night, so
it's insane, and to think where we are. Actually, you know what? I'll tell you an interesting one. So there was a property that was I did a comparison on this. I did a video on this too. There's a property that was listed in Aurora in April of 2022. So near the peak of the market. Okay.
Right.
And it was listed for 1.188 million. So 1188 it was listed for. However, it never sold at that time, right? And the property finally sold at the end of November 2022 when the interest rates have already gone up like 7 times. So, and it sold for 894,809, just about 900K. So with a 20% down payment on that higher purchase price at the lower interest rates, the payments were actually higher than what the payments would be now to buy it at 20% at higher. So you always want to carry a lower mortgage. The interest rate is what it is, but you never, like, if the house prices go up, you're taking on more debt at a lower cost.
And less equity too, right?
And less equity, right? Now you're taking on less debt. Yes, it's at a higher interest rate, but those things will even itself out when you factor in the 6 to 7% annual gain on average that you can get in our real estate.
I'm sure you guys heard this saying, like you date the interest rate and you marry the house, right? Like interest rates are gonna go down, it's temporary, but the house is the one you're gonna keep. So it's better to buy it at 800,000-900,000 with even 6-7%. When in the next few years it's gonna go back down. I mean, it's not gonna go to 1.4, 1.2, but it's gonna go down to 3-4s, right?
Yes, and you know what? It's the same thing. It's like if we look at our parents, or if we look at people that bought homes in the early '90s, would you rather pay 17% interest and buy a property for $80,000? I would.
I have something interesting I want to share with you guys. I think my partner Diana posted something in our group here. So it says like is 6% rate high? Yes, but not historically. The highest rate we had in 1981 was 22.06. Okay, 1981. That's 1 year before I was born. There is a simple breakdown. If you bought a 2 bedroom condo in the downtown core for 750K with 20% down at 6% rate, you'll be paying 3,300, with 27 to 2,800 of that interest. Right now, the rent for that same property is 3,300. So even if you're paying only $500, $600 a month principal, but you're still like you're buying the property at a lower price than last year, even if it's 0.1, even if it's 1% less, 5%, 10, depending on what you buy. But the equity you're gonna build in the next few years is gonna that's where the catch is, and also that rate when it goes back down, your payments can ultimately go down below, like it'll be like 2,500.
Exactly.
So you're dating that 3,300 rate for now.
For now.
For now, but you're marrying the house, right?
Yeah, and with the interest rates, you know, and now that you bring that up, so where we're heading right now, obviously I talked about March 6th, right? So watch out for that one. But the consensus on base rate is that, you know, that interest rates will come down, possibly Q3, Q4 this year. Okay, so you know, think after the summer, you know, fall season that time, or you're talking about Q1 next year, right? So the interest rates will come down, and what you mentioned there is pretty much bang on. Like again, the consensus is that high threes, low fours is where we're gonna end up.
Yeah.
Which is what we had for a very long time.
Yeah, like before COVID, I remember it was threes in the threes
Yeah.
or fours, and honestly, there was multiple offer everywhere. The builders, sales centers, you couldn't even walk in. Like there were people were bumping into each other.
Yeah, and I think we just got spoiled
Yeah.
by during COVID when everyone got 1.39 fixed,
Yeah.
or you know, variables at 1.15. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember there's one lender. Well, actually, I'm just gonna say it. HSBC had 0.99%
Wow.
variable 5 years.
Right.
So now imagine those people that took that 5-year variable at 0.99, right?
Yeah.
What their payments have gone up by.
No,
now.
even my own father's mortgage was 1.2 or 1.3 variable, and it just went from like, it just all became interest.
Yeah, it's
Because some mortgage payments it adds to it, but some like just
Static.
the mortgage and things.
yeah. So those mortgages, there's only a handful of lenders that do that. It's called a static payment.
Yeah.
So the mortgage payment never changes, but what goes towards principal and what you're saying, what goes towards interest changes as the interest rates vary.
Yeah.
That's a good thing for a lot of people that have fixed income, and so it's good for budgeting purposes. But if you're gonna play the market, then play the market.
Right.
Then take the regular variable mortgage where the payments go up and down with the mortgage itself.
So let me ask you, Bilal. Right now, I'm a first-time buyer. I want to get into the market. Nothing crazy. Whether it's with the co-equity program or on my own. Would you recommend getting a variable mortgage or a fixed rate?
That's a loaded question.
What would you do?
So
Disclaimer.
okay, so the first thing that I would do is I would look at my income, and I would see, is my income fixed or variable.
Right.
That's number one. That's and I'm being completely rational about this. And if my income is variable, like my income goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, then I'm adverse. Like I'm okay with playing the market. I'm
Right.
okay with that risk. That hey, if my payment goes up next month, it's okay. I'm business for self.
Right.
Right. However, if I work a 9-to-5 job and I have fixed salary, and I know this is how much I can afford every month, then I would not do a variable
Then
rate.
don't play the market.
However, there's exceptions to that. In this market, where I know for a fact, like obviously this is based on, no one has a crystal ball,
Right.
but this is based on the experts that I've spoken to in the field and people on Bay Street, bankers, and based on all of that data and feedback, the banks are already pricing in. They're already, and I'm saying this on record, they're already pricing in rate cuts.
Yeah.
Right. So having said that, I would at this time play a variable mortgage.
So based on the way they're pricing their fixed mortgages and how it's going down after a few years, you can kind of assume, predict that.
You can. And then now here's another thing to support that. So I'm not going to say the name of the bank because I think they got in trouble for this. But there's certain banks that have reached out to clients that were on variable rates and have said, hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars if you switch to a 5-year fixed right now.
Wow.
So why would they do that? We all know banks, the one thing
Yeah.
that banks care about is their bottom line.
Exactly.
Right? They don't, they can do all the advertising that they want, but we know that's what happens, right? Everyone
sure.
is looking after their bottom line. So why are they doing that? Then you have to ask yourself that.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you're going to come to the conclusion is because they are pricing in the fact
They know something.
that the interest rates are going to come down. However, the Bank of Canada is sending messages that their interest rates are not going to come down. We're going to stay here, right? But the banks know that's not the case.
They know something.
Inflation data, like that's where they all derive these policies from, right? And I guess we can talk a little bit about inflation and politics and how that sort of fits into the picture as well. So happy to do that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this. All right, so thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in today's podcast on the co-equity program with me and my buddy Bilal. If any of you want to reach out to them at 812 Mortgages, we're going to put down his Instagram handle and his contact info in this video, so go ahead and reach out to them. They're awesome. They have an amazing team, and they can help you with all these things that we talked about today. Again, thanks so much, Bilal.
Thank you so much for having us, and now let's talk about pyramids.
Awesome. All right, brother. Thanks so much.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, sick.